Today I'm going to show you how to make this 1/12 scale garage door, which is just one piece of a gigantic diorama that I'm making for YouTuber Modern Toy Fair. If you don't know Modern Toy Fair, he does action figure reviews and a lot of toy photography. So my goal is to create a unique diorama that you can use in that action figure photography, and today's project starts with my 3D printer. This behemoth is a Creality Ender 3 Max, and it is an FDM printer. Everything on the printer is stock except for the bed. I have a PEI bed by 3D. And as always, I'm using Hatchbox PLA. This is actually the first project that I've ever used this printer on, even though I've had it for several months. I really needed a bed that was big enough to print this garage door. Just so you guys can get a sense for how big this is, here is a 6-inch Marvel Legends standing on the bed. Also, if you're interested in following along with this video and trying this for yourself, I do have the files available on my website for purchase for the garage door. It's $10. You'll get the file for the door itself and the file for the little window coverings as well. Quick little disclaimer, if you are planning to print this, you need to make sure your print bed is big enough. You won't be able to print this easily on smaller printers like my Kingroon or my Ender 3 V2. So the first thing that we have to do now that this is off the print bed is we have to prep this for paint. You could probably just spray paint this, but there's going to be layer lines on the piece and it's not going to look as good as I wanted to in the final product. So the first thing that we have to do is sand it down, and I do that with a couple of different measures. I do that with my rotary tool by Ryobi. I do that with sandpaper of different grit, and I also use a nail file and a couple of other things. Quick safety tip, make sure you wear a dust mask and also some eyewear. Yes, I know I need to clean these. When you're doing any kind of sanding of plastic parts, and then I also use a shop vac to suck up the excess. A good rule of thumb when you're processing a 3D print is to climb the ladder of sandpaper grit, going lowest to highest. For this project, I started out with an 80 grit nail file, worked up to 120 grit sandpaper, then went to 220 and 320. And as you can see, it leaves a lot of residue. I said this earlier, but I'll say it again. The reason that I'm doing this is to eliminate the layer lines that are commonly associated with FDM printing. The better job I do sanding them, the more smooth they'll be. Okay, so I went ahead and I actually washed these off with water and dried them off a little bit. They're still a little bit wet, but they're way smoother than they were when they came off the print bed. And in fact, I have another print that I want to show you guys, and I don't know how you can tell, how well you can tell. This is a lot more rough than what I have after the sanded down versions. I'm going to try to get a shot so you guys can see that. But it really makes a big difference when you sand them down before you prime and paint them. And now it's time to prime this. This is also going to be my base coat. I'm using this Rust-Oleum flat white primer to get everything started on the paint job. You only really need about 10 minutes before it's dry enough to start airbrushing, but I let it dry a little bit longer than that before applying this Vallejo gray. I decided to make this piece a double-sided door, so what I'm going to try to do is an interior paint job for a warehouse and an exterior paint job, where the exterior piece is dirtier than the inside piece. I'm definitely a novice when it comes to airbrushing, so if you have any ideas on how I can improve my skill, please leave me a comment and let me know. That would definitely be welcome feedback for me. And just in case you're wondering, I've moved on to a Vallejo mahogany brown here. Just trying to get a base for the grime that I'm going to apply. At this point, I decided to add the other 3D parts for this model using glue, which is Hotwire Foam Factory Styro Glue that I often spread onto the pieces using a scrap piece of XPS foam. If you've never tried this stuff, I highly recommend it. It's my favorite glue to use in diorama art, and it bonds XPS foam really well to 3D prints. With that done, it's back to the airbrushing, and this time I'm using the mahogany brown to weather up the areas that I just glued on, which actually aren't even painted, they're just raw black PLA. It seems to me it would be pretty weird for those to be perfectly clean in this situation. Since I want the outdoor piece of this to really look dirtier because it's been exposed to elements and things like that, maybe mud spatter, things like that, I'm going to use some sponge painting here with that same mahogany brown, just slightly watered down. I thought about trying salt chipping for the first time on this, but I really thought, you know what, I'm going to stick with what I know and make sure that I do a really good job with the sponge painting, which I think I did. The piece on the left is my exterior piece, and you can probably tell off camera I did some more sponge painting, this time with some black, which I'm going to now do on the inside portion of this. I want the inside part to look dirty, but I don't want it to be overpowering, so I kind of just go around the edges with the black. I let all of that dry for a couple minutes just to make sure that I was okay to put this down and not have it smear, so that I could glue this together with the hot wire foam factory styro glue that I mentioned earlier. You saw me do it earlier in the video, but using a piece of scrap foam to spread the glue evenly really helps to bond everything together nicely, and then I go ahead and place some clear plastic over top that will serve as my windows on the piece. The way that a lot of people think about this glue is that it's really for XPS foam to XPS foam bonding, and that is definitely true, but it's honestly one of the most versatile glues that I've ever used in diorama art. And it is definitely my go-to glue whenever I am going to apply a 3D printed part to my XPS foam, even when that part is going to have weight bared on top of it. It really does well under stress and is very, very reliable. I'm going to speed things up here a little bit because what you're watching me do is just be really meticulous with the glue. I want to make sure that I kind of have every part of these doors stick together so it doesn't come apart. When it's finally time to press them together, it really doesn't take a whole lot of pressure or time for this glue to tack up, which is one of the things that I really love about it. And here it is, the finished piece in all of its double-sided glory. I think that this is going to be one of the focal pieces of the warehouse that I'm building for Modern Toy Fair. If you're interested in purchasing these 3D models from me, here is the view of what they look like in Tinkercad. So essentially you have two pieces, the garage door itself, which you would print twice, and then the 3 window coverings, which you would also print twice for a total of 6, 3 for each side. And for the sake of being thorough, here's what it looks like in my slicer of choice, Prusa slicer. I always print on my machines at 220 degrees Celsius, and if you do that with this model, it's going to be about 11 hours for each of these garage doors, so you're going to look at about 22 hours total just for the garage doors themselves. But the window coverings being a lot smaller also take a lot less time. These will print in about 14 minutes per 3-pack, so not much time at all if you need to, get these printed out on your printer. Thank you guys so much for checking out my 1/12 scale garage door build. I hope that you liked the video, and if you feel inspired, you'll go ahead and get this yourself and see if you can do something like this on your 3D printer. Thank you so much. I will see you in the next episode.
Vascotoys, action figure dioramas and props.